Thank you for tuning in to another podcast of Gaming with the Guys, brought to you by Broforce1.com, featuring Mark Dannenberger and Kyle Dannenberger. We hope you enjoy.
All right, guys, welcome back to another podcast of Gaming with the Guys. Today we're going to bring you something a little different. Try a new game out, Fortnite. But before we get into that, Kyle, what games have you been playing this week?
Well, as you know, I'm a big gamer, clearly by the title of our podcast, Gaming with the Guys. But lately, I've just been playing a lot of PUBG. I'm dabbling more into Fortnite now that's becoming more mainstream, and the game's free, so there's really no reason to not be playing it, except for having a life and doing stuff outside of playing Xbox, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, that's true. No, this game it's blowing up. It's only getting more and more popular, I think, as more people start to play it, and they've got a nice free-to-play model here. There's obviously microtransactions, but you can look past it. Don't need them to win at this game. They're strictly cosmetic. All right, Kyle, do you want to let people know what the topic is today?
Well, as always, not as always, but we like to do our lists, and we are going to do the top 3 spots that to really loot and drop in at the beginning of the game of Fortnite, and Mark's going to treat us to his location that he hates the most. And maybe we could go with Mark before we start this list. Maybe you could give people like a quick background of what the game actually is.
Right, and before I even start with, so Fortnite is a game. It's a massive multiplayer game. 100 people drop in. You can play single, doubles, or squad, which consists of 4 people. And pretty much all you're trying to do is be the last one surviving. And you drop into a huge map. And a storm comes, which if you get stuck in, eliminates and starts to slowly condense the map down till it can literally be big enough for one person. So that's the basis of the game, and I think these places that I'm going to be listing off are mostly for people who beginner-esque and beginners and people kind of learning the game and then advancing that way. So obviously an expert can probably drop in. They're going to know a lot of chest locations. Chests hold very powerful weapons. So that's where they're going to target. This is if your buddies got you convinced, you downloaded the game, got off PS4, maybe you have a PC, maybe you got an Xbox, and you're like, well, here's this huge map, I have no idea where we should go. So that's these locations and these specific ones that we'll be talking about today. So at number 3, I'm going to start with the Greasy Grove. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Mark, that's where most people drop in. Why would new beginners want to jump into Greasy Grove? Well, it's kind of like jumping in the deep end. You really want to focus on, and you're gonna get into a lot of gun battles here. This is where you're gonna get a weapon quickly, and you're gonna have to turn around and fight someone. You're gonna have to continually fight people, whether it's singles, doubles, or squad. It's a very high populated area. So if you're trying to get your feet wet, you're trying to understand what the game's about, it's a good spot to go because you're gonna have to start building quickly, building up, and getting weapons. So the first few times, you're going to struggle, but in the long run, you're going to gain really valuable experience. And that's going to help you play this game at a much higher level quicker.
And I've noticed here on the map, Greasy Grove is completely on the left side of the map. Well, not left side, but it's on the west side, almost by itself. Is there a reason why a lot of people like to just jump in there, or is it just...
Well, if you think about it this way, first off, it's got a lot of chests, so that's obviously, a good thing too. But when you look at the map, you've got all water to your back, so nobody's going to press from behind you as you run to the next spot, which is obviously advantageous. You don't really have to turn around. You're more or less looking middle, right, and left, and the more you can condense your eyesight and where you're going, that's better versus if you drop more in the center of the map. So that's why Greasy Grove, for a lot of people, it's a tough spot for sure. It's very popular. It's got a lot of good chest locations, but again, this is so you've played a few games, and again, that's why it's 3. It's not the best place to drop, but it's a good place for beginners, and then obviously you can revisit as you gain experience. All right, and at number 2 on the list, I've got Wailing Woods. Now, Wailing Woods is as we've progressed, and why I like Wailing Woods is because a lot of people don't think of Wailing Woods as a good place to start. They only know of the two possible chest spawns in the middle. But if you look at the top north right hand or eastern corner, pretty much diagonal from Greasy Grove, plenty of chest spawns, and you're not going to run into as many combatants for them. So it's a nice place to equip up, and then it also has the same benefit as Greasy Grove, where again, as you push towards the circle of the map, you're going to really enjoy. There's no one going to be at your back. I mean, you're pushing in. Again, everyone's going to be in front of you or to the side. So it makes the predictability of either it's singles, duos, or squads in front of you. And you've also got a really nice chance of chest spawns.
Mm-hmm. Now, would you say when the map starts to condense, Wailing Woods is probably... I mean, obviously the map's going to condense and Wailing Woods is going to be cut out of it. Are you running more towards, let's say, like the retail row in the middle of the map? Or where's your next spot, I guess, when you go from there?
So obviously that's going to depend on where the circle is. So and there is a possibility the circle could be at Wailing Woods, but let's say worst case scenario, it's closer to the bottom western portion of the map. Where you're gonna run, it's the first place you're gonna see is the big place. It's Tomato Town, which is probably going to be looted. Again, what's nice though is even in this worst case scenario for Wailing Woods, everyone's in the same boat. You're not going to run into people, running your way. You're not going to get cut off. So even if the circle is in a spot where you've got to make a big run, you're just going to make the run. And again, I know a lot of people like to call Fortnite a running simulator, and in some situations it is. But it definitely is a nice spot. Even in the worst case scenario, you do have to keep an eye on that timer. That's good awareness. But again, if you're somebody who's coming in the map, this is, maybe you've just gotten destroyed at Greasy Grove. You got your morale's down. This is a good place to just drop in, kind of run the outer coast, and then start to progress towards the new circle.
Okay, I think before we proceed, maybe before you telling us your favorite spot, let's go with maybe the spot you hate the most.
All right, now this one here, guys, this is a spot that I just think is overrated, but yet every time you get somebody who wants to jump in there, and that's Loot Lake. Now, you look at Loot Lake, and you're thinking, I mean, it's Loot Lake, right? There's a house in the middle. There's got to be tons of chests, and you'd be shocked, really not a ton of chests in this area. So it's a good chest spot, don't get me wrong, but everyone's jumping into this area. It's really centered, located. You would think that if you won this spot, you win the game, which in most situations isn't the case. It can actually put you in a lot of really bad situations. Good to get an early battle in, but if you're really looking to win, Loot Lake, it's going to put you behind the 8 ball here.
Mm-hmm. And now, I guess let's move on to, tell us your favorite spot.
So this spot mirrors my number 2, but this is the spot here. It's kind of the most underrated spot in all of Fortnite, and it's Flush Factory. Okay, now the problem with Flush is the same with Wailing Woods, except for it's even worse than Wailing Woods. So that's why it's my number 1 favorite spot, because even less people will jump in because of how condensed the map gets at the bottom. So you're not normally going to get the first circle to spawn over you, so you will have to travel. But most of the time, as long as you're watching the timer, you're not going to struggle with this. But you're going to get in. There's 3 to 5 chests normally every time. It's going to get everybody loaded up. And as you understand the intricacies of the Flush Factory, that's where you gain dominance. So maybe the first few times you fly in and you're like, wow, Mark, I hate Flush Factory. It's terrible. I got nuked. But then as you learn it, you understand the chest spawns, you start to get a little more savvy. This is the one where you're going to win most battles, you're going to beat just random teams flying in, and you're going to start to equip and build. You're going to be really surprised at not only the loot you get here, but the success rate you have of getting out, especially in squads or doubles, of killing everyone, but then also getting good loot and then moving on and not getting stuck in the storm.
Now, what differentiates Flush Factory with maybe Fatal Fields?
So again, Fatal Fields is an interesting spot, and it has the same problem that a lot of these middle spots have. Is that as the circle progresses, you have to defend 360 degrees. So if you start at Fatal Fields, and let's say the circle goes over more of the middle of the map, maybe over let's say closer to Loot Lake, you're gonna have people from Flush Factory pushing up from your backside. You're gonna have people from Retail Row pushing from your right side. You're gonna have people from Greasy Grove pushing from your left. And those are going to be tough squads to beat. So let's say you didn't get a lot of good loot at Fatal Fields. You're going to feel kind of underwhelmed. And a lot of people say, well, Mark, just build a really nice base. All a possibility, but you're going to run into people with splodes, which is explosives, and they're going to destroy that base. So it's always a tough thing. You really don't want to build bases until the late game. So a lot of the benefits of being in the circle earlier are kind of defeated by all the areas you have to guard.
And someone like me who's been playing PUBG a ton, I know a lot of people will drop more in the center of the map, and why aren't people dropping into Retail Row, seeing that that's more of the center of the map area?
People do. Retail Row, great spot to get loot. It's going to remind you a lot of Greasy Grove. Why? So you definitely can, but it's definitely a spot where I think a more advanced team's going to come in to take advantage of that. So there's really no reason to get involved. So normally what you see at Retail Row is, especially in squads or even duos, you're going to see teams jump in, and you're going to have like 3 or 4 teams battling it out. Everybody knows what Retail Row is. And you're also going to get a lot of bus flights that kind of go over that. So you're going to get a lot of action there, which, again, isn't a bad thing. But if you're going to get a lot of action, again, Retail Row, middle of the map, a lot of teams pushing towards you. You want to go Greasy Grove. You get not only you get all the same, pretty much the same loot. You also got the defense of water to your back, so no one's pushing from your back. So I do think that while Retail Row, in a PUBG sense, might make sense, with the ability to build and all that stuff, you don't really need to be in the middle of the map. It's almost advantageous to kind of get to the final circle, at least in my opinion, the final circle a little later, and then kind of go from there.
Interesting.
All right, so before we end the podcast, Kyle, thoughts initially here. You've only played a very, very little of Fortnite. Kind of, what are your thoughts and opinions on the differences between that and PlayerUnknown's Battleground?
Obviously, probably both these games are obviously a ton of running. PlayerUnknown Battleground, obviously, there's probably way more of a learning curve when you're playing Fortnite. Just the whole building aspect of everything. You definitely don't do that in PlayerUnknown. And especially on Xbox, I'm usually looking for vehicles. In this game, they're non-existent. But I'm excited to see both. PUBG's came out with more maps. And I only play on Xbox One, so they're bringing more maps to Xbox One. And I hear Fortnite's bringing more maps too. So it'll be interesting to see how the two games work out and everything.
And just to kind of build off that point, I think you don't experience the full fun of Fortnite until you learn building. And I think that's something that a lot of people are scared of initially because it's a tougher concept. You build walls and people can shoot them down and trying to build these intricate bases. But once you understand the concepts, once you get the core basics of it, you'll be shocked at one, how quickly you improve, and two, how it adds to the diversity of gameplay. I mean, it's a big thing. If you play like PUBG, you're gonna just get mowed down eventually as the circle gets closer or as the final few teams are left. So that would be one thing. And no vehicles in Fortnite. They both kind of have a little. Fortnite's map's also smaller. So that is kind of the give and take there. But I agree, Kyle. I think that both do. It'll be interesting seeing going forward kind of what we get out of these two games.
And especially with Fortnite being a free game, you got to think there's going to be a way that they're going to try and make more money off this game. Don't you think so?
Right. They're going to eventually. Now, again, microtransaction heavy here. $20 skins is brutal to think about. I mean, everyone wants their player to look cool, but $20? Oh, man, I don't know. It's a tough pill to swallow. But before we end the podcast again, big shout out to my boy Sammy Cyclops here. Really filled me with a lot of this information. I was once a pleb at one point, and Sammy's really brought me and Scooby the Doobie and Jay Lento along. So big shouts out to him for if you want to carry, if you want a squad or duo win, I know Sammy can get you there.
And as always, guys, check out www.broforce1.com. to check out more articles. You can see more podcasts like Gaming with the Guys. We have another one coming out. Try and build a little hype here. Work from home, boys.
Exciting stuff.
We're
guys.
bringing a third guy on to the team. His name's Bad Brad.
Oh yeah,
And he just came out with a great article on winter clothing. So you gotta check it out.
it's a hot read. It's you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna like it. You're gonna laugh. You're gonna cry. It's gonna make you rethink every decision you've ever made. So that's a nice addition to the team.
Yeah, and follow us on all social media at broforce1.com, DOT.com. So
Right, and let's not forget, again, I know sponsored by, but Gaming with the Guys is brought to you by broforce1.com.
And I think that'll be it for this podcast. And stay tuned for later in the week for boys who work from home. We're still working on the title.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get it ironed out.
Yeah.
But as always, ciao.